Muslims advance to the heart of Egypt. Byzantines are not ready to give up. What did native Egyptians do? To learn about that, we need to step back and start at an earlier time in history. Amr Ibn Al-As, the man who started it all. But who is Amr? Amr Ibn Al-As was born around 575 AD in the tribe of Quraysh. His father was al-Aas ibn Wa'il, one of the tribe's wealthy leaders. Amr grew up to become a merchant who frequently embarked on trade journeys to the Levant, Yemen, and various other regions. One day, before the emergence of Islam, Amr was on a journey to the Levant. While tending to his camels near Jerusalem, he noticed a man who appeared to be a monk. The monk looked severely thirsty and on the brink of collapse. The monk asked Amr for some water, and Amr offered it to him. After drinking, the monk fell asleep. As the monk slept, a deadly threat emerged, a snake, silent and swift, its eyes fixed on the sleeping man. Amr's instincts kicked in. Without hesitation, he grabbed a nearby stick, and with a single, decisive strike, Amr saved the monk's life. When the monk woke up, Amr told him what happened during his sleep. The monk said, "You saved my life twice today. First with water, and now with your courage. So, what brings you to these lands?" Amr replied, "I'm here for trade, seeking fortune as any merchant would." The monk then said, "I am in your debt. Come with me to my homeland, and you shall be richly rewarded for your kindness. I come from Alexandria, a city unlike any you have ever seen." Amr said, "Alexandria? I've never been there." The monk said, "Once you see it, you'll realize you've never truly seen anything like it. It's a journey of a month, but worth every step. Come, stay with us, and you will not regret it." Intrigued by the monk's words, Amr agreed to the journey. Together, they traveled to Alexandria, a city of wonder and splendor beyond his wildest dreams. Alexandria, a jewel of the ancient world, revealed itself in all its glory. Amr marveled at its architecture, its thriving markets, and the wealth that flowed through its streets. The city was a testament to human ingenuity, far surpassing anything he had known. As a token of their gratitude, the people of Alexandria rewarded Amr with 2,000 dinars, a sum that would change the life of any man. But more than the wealth, it was the experience that left an indelible mark on Amr. He had seen a world beyond Arabia, a world of sophistication, culture, and advancement. And he would never forget it. Amr ibn al-As returned to his homeland, but the memories of Alexandria lingered. The city had opened his eyes to the possibilities of the world, a world that would soon be reshaped by the message of Islam and in which Amr would play a pivotal role in the years to come. When Islam began to spread in Mecca around 610 AD, Amr and his father became infamous as fierce adversaries of the early Islam followers. As persecution intensified, a group of Muslims sought refuge in Abyssinia, Ethiopia. Seizing this opportunity, Amr led a delegation from the Quraysh tribe to Abyssinia, aiming to convince its king, Najashi, to surrender the Muslims, branding them as outlaws. However, the wise and fair-minded King Najashi rejected Amr's request. Undeterred, Amr continued to oppose the Muslims, fighting them alongside the Quraysh tribe in several battles. However, among the Arabs, Amr was renowned for his sharp intellect, cunning, and exceptional insight. Arab Muslims have long held a deep respect for Egypt and its people, a sentiment deeply rooted in their faith. Egypt is mentioned in the Quran around 35 times, often in a positive and revered light. Some scholars mention Egypt as a safe haven where God provided refuge for Jesus and his mother, Mary. A Quran verse recounts the sacred moment when God spoke to Moses on Mount Sinai. The captivating story of Prophet Joseph unfolds within Egypt's borders, and we also hear of the ancient Egyptian magicians who, after witnessing Moses' miracles, chose to defy Pharaoh and embrace faith. These stories, among others, highlight Egypt's significant role in Islamic tradition. Furthermore, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, spoke of Egypt with great affection in his sayings or hadiths. Also, the mother of his son Ibrahim was Maria the Coptic. In one of the most authentic hadiths, he prophesied to his companions that they would one day open Egypt and urged them to treat the Copts with kindness, reminding them, "They are your relatives and in-laws." This statement draws from the Islamic tradition that Hajar, the wife of Prophet Abraham and mother of Prophet Ishmael, was a Coptic woman. Given that many Arabs trace their lineage back to Ishmael and Hajar, the connection to Egypt was seen as a return to the land of their ancestors and relatives. Understanding these perspectives is crucial for grasping the complex interactions and events that unfolded among the Arabs, the Romans, and the Egyptian Copts throughout history. Each group's viewpoint sheds light on a unique facet of this rich and intricate narrative. When Amr sensed that the tide was turning in favor of the Muslims and that they were gradually gaining influence over his tribe, Quraysh, he made a bold decision. He chose to leave Arabia altogether and seek refuge in Abyssinia, modern-day Ethiopia, a land where he had cultivated a strong bond with its wise ruler, King Najashi. Upon arriving at Najashi's palace, Amr was surprised to find a Muslim emissary just finishing a meeting with the king, delivering a message from none other than Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Curious and perhaps a bit unsettled, Amr later asked his old friend, King Najashi, about his dealings with these Muslims, the very enemies of the prominent Quraysh tribe. To his astonishment, Najashi revealed that he had embraced Islam himself and extended an invitation to Amr to consider the new faith. This revelation sparked a whirlwind of thoughts in Amr's mind. Many Arabs, even those he once counted as allies, had already embraced Islam. Now, even the king of Abyssinia, a man of great wisdom and stature, had accepted it. Amr couldn't help but wonder, how was it possible that this religion, seemingly championed by the poor and the weak, was steadily gaining ground? Intrigued and increasingly convinced, Amr's heart began to soften toward this new faith. After much reflection, he approached King Najashi once more, this time with a resolute heart, and announced his decision to convert to Islam. With newfound conviction, Amr set out for Medina. On the journey, he crossed paths with two other distinguished figures, Khalid ibn al-Walid, a brilliant military strategist, and Uthman ibn Talha, known for his noble lineage and character. Together, the three men made their way to Medina, where they would soon meet the Prophet himself and publicly declare their faith, marking a significant turning point in their lives and the history of Islam. The seeds of conflict between the Byzantine Empire and the emerging Muslim state in Arabia were sown around 629 AD. Sensing that the Byzantines were preparing to launch a raid into their territories, aided by their Christian Arab allies in the Levant, the Muslims decided to take a bold step. They launched a preemptive strike, a daring move that could have ended in catastrophe. Only 3,000 Muslim soldiers found themselves facing an overwhelming force of 200,000 Byzantines and their allies, as some accounts suggest. In the chaos of battle, the brilliance of Khalid ibn al-Walid, a Muslim military strategist, came to the fore. After all the designated commanders were killed, Khalid assumed leadership and orchestrated a masterful retreat. Against all odds, he maneuvered the vastly outnumbered Muslim forces to safety, turning what seemed like certain annihilation into a tactical draw. Following this, Khalid, a never-defeated military leader alongside other commanders, led a series of confrontations with non-Muslim Arab tribes that rose up after the death of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. These battles culminated in the unification of the Arabian Peninsula. With Arabia now consolidated, the emerging Muslim state was poised for its next major challenge, confronting the formidable Persian and Byzantine empires. In a series of decisive victories, the Muslims expanded their domain into Iraq, Iran, and the Levant. One of the commanders who led these conquests in the Levant was Amr Ibn Al-As. His strategic acumen was evident when the Byzantine commander, overwhelmed by the Muslim advances, fled Jerusalem for safety in Egypt. However, Amr ibn al-As had his sights set on something more: Egypt. He was acutely aware of Egypt's immense value and the wealth it could bring to the expanding Muslim state. He also knew about the persecution the Egyptians faced under Roman rule, a tyranny that had lasted for 700 years. Amr felt a moral duty, fueled by what he had learned from the Prophet, peace be upon him, to liberate Egypt from this oppression. Amr began to plant the seeds of this idea in the mind of Caliph Omar, suggesting that the Muslim army could move from the Levant to Egypt. But Omar, cautious and mindful of the risks, was hesitant. He did not feel the Muslim state was ready to undertake such a significant gamble. Omar rejected Amr's proposal. Amr ibn al-As went back and stood before Caliph Omar, his eyes alight with ambition. Amr began by painting a vivid picture of Egypt's strategic significance. "O leader of the faithful," he said, "Egypt is not just any land. It is the gateway to North Africa and a fertile country that could feed many people for generations. And more than that, by capturing Egypt, we would cut off Byzantine support to their remaining strongholds, giving us protection against potential attacks they could be already planning. O Caliph, Egyptians also have the right to justice and mercy of Islam. It is our duty to liberate those under oppression and make them aware of the message of Islam. Their oppressors will never allow that." Omar was moved, but his caution remained. "Very well," he said finally, "I will give you 4,000 troops, but on one condition. Move swiftly and carefully use these limited resources. And if you receive a letter from me before crossing into Egypt, you must return immediately." Amr agreed, and without wasting time, he gathered his forces and set out. Days turned into weeks as they marched, and as they reached the edge of Egypt, a messenger arrived with a letter from Omar, commanding them to return. But Amr decided not to open it until standing on Egyptian soil, and this way he did not disobey the Caliph's orders. In December of 639 AD, the army of Amr ibn al-As, moving like a whisper through the sands, crossed into Egypt from the Sinai Peninsula. Their first challenge was the towns of Rafah and Arish, but to their surprise, these gates of Egypt swung open without resistance, as if welcoming the inevitable tide of change. Buoyed by this early success, Amr pressed on to the fortress city of Al-Farama, known to the Romans as Pelusium. The Roman garrison, entrenched behind thick walls, proved a formidable adversary. For nearly 2 months, according to some sources, the desert echoed with a clash of steel as the Romans resisted fiercely. Yet Amr's resolve was unshakable. Some Bedouin tribes, sensing the winds of change, joined the Muslim forces, providing much-needed supplies and reinforcements. Eventually, the fortress fell, marking a significant victory on Amr's path to Egypt. The news flew across Egypt. Cyrus and Heraclius' concerns were growing. On the other hand, and according to some resources, Father Benjamin saw this as potential relief from the ongoing persecution of the Egyptian Copts. He sent messages to his followers encouraging them not to resist the Muslims and allowing them to offer help or supplies. Next, Amr's army turned its attention to Bilbais, a city of historical significance and strategic value. The Romans, led by Aritian, a commander who had fled Jerusalem for the safety of Egypt, were not ready to give up without a fight. Under the cover of night, they launched a surprise attack on the Muslim camp. But what they intended as a decisive blow turned into a disastrous miscalculation. The Muslims, undeterred and quick to regroup, not only repelled the attack but also swiftly defeated the attacking Roman forces. After a month of relentless siege and skirmishes, Bilbais fell, leaving 1,000 Roman soldiers dead and over 3,000 taken as prisoners. With each victory, Amr's confidence grew, but he knew that the toughest challenge lay ahead, the mighty fortress of Babylon, near the bustling city of Misr. As the army marched, they passed the ancient city of Heliopolis, or Ain Shams, a city that goes back to ancient history. Before Babylon, they encountered the fortified city of Dinin or Tendunias, a crucial Nile harbor teeming with Roman ships that Amr coveted to cross the river. But Dinin was no easy prize. The Romans, well protected behind their walls, fought fiercely. Amr's troops, weary from the prolonged siege, struggled to make headway. Recognizing the dire need for reinforcements, Amr sent word to the Caliph, requesting more troops. Meanwhile, he devised a cunning plan to buy time. Instead of exhausting his forces in a direct assault on Babylon, he turned to easier targets, smaller towns and villages where quick victories could be won. The Muslim army captured parts of Fayoum province, including the village of Banassa, and was also able to defeat a small Roman force, led by a general named John, who were attempting to take the Muslim army by surprise. The death of General John caused a lot of grief on the Roman side, including the Emperor Heraclius himself. Though some Christian sources claimed a massacre at Banassa, where even women and children were not spared, such acts were strictly forbidden by Prophet of Islam teachings, which the Muslim army diligently followed. It is clearly untrue and a result of bias on the side of some historians. Finally, reinforcements arrived on 2 waves, 4,000 each, led by Az-Zubair ibn al-Awwam, along with other renowned commanders, Ubadah ibn as-Samit, al-Miqdad ibn al-Aswad, and Maslama ibn Maqlad. The sight of these seasoned leaders lifted the spirits of the Muslim soldiers. Amr, now commanding a force of 12,000, devised a plan to lure Theodore out of the Babylon fortress for a decisive battle. Theodore, confident in his superior numbers, his army numbering over 20,000, marched out to meet Amr in open combat. But Amr had anticipated this move. He positioned 2 groups of his troops behind hills near Heliopolis, with the main force near the city. As Theodore's army advanced, they found themselves in a trap. The Muslim forces, hidden and waiting, launched a surprise attack from the flanks and from the rear side of the Roman army, crushing the Byzantine forces between what appeared to be 3 armies attacking from all sides. Panic ensued, and the Byzantine forces were decimated. Some fled to the north, others back to the safety of Babylon. In the aftermath of this sweeping victory, Amr returned to Dinin, capturing it with ease, along with other key locations like Manf. With his army now bolstered and the path clear, he moved closer to Babylon, ready to lay siege to the last great stronghold standing between him and the heart of Egypt. As soon as the Muslim army arrived at the gates of the Babylon fortress, Amr Ibn Al-As stood before the towering walls of the Babylon fortress, his gaze steady and resolute. The fortress loomed like a defiant giant, its high walls and tall towers casting long shadows over the surrounding land. Amr's forces, though determined, were ill-equipped for a prolonged siege. They had only a few catapults, or manjaniks, as the Arabs called them, scavenged from recent battles. It was clear this would not be a quick victory. Within the fortress walls, the mood was tense. Cyrus, the Byzantine governor, sensed the growing fear among his men. With Theodore, the lead military Roman commander, having fled to Alexandria after their defeat at Heliopolis, it was left to Cyrus and the fortress commander George, or Araj as called by Arabs, and their remaining force of 5,000 to 6,000 soldiers to hold the fortress. As the siege dragged on for over a month, Cyrus called a meeting with his commanders. He spoke with a somber tone. The Arabs are relentless. It would be wiser to negotiate now, offer them money, and hope they leave us in peace. The commanders agreed, and soon envoys were dispatched to Amr with a message intended to intimidate. You are few, surrounded by the Nile's waters, and vastly outnumbered by the Romans. It would be wise to consider terms before it's too late. But Amr, unshaken, detained the envoys briefly, treating them with hospitality. He wanted them to witness the Muslim army's resolve, their willingness to die for their cause. The envoys returned to Cyrus with a startling report. These are people who prefer death to life. Their leader lives among them with no distinction of rank, and they pray with a discipline we have never seen. Amr sent back 3 choices to Cyrus: conversion to Islam, payment of the jizya tax, or war. Cyrus moved to Rhoda Island for more safety and requested a negotiation, and Amr sent 10 officers, led by the formidable Ubadah ibn as-Samit. But when Ubadah, a short black man, entered the room, Cyrus recoiled. Take away that black man, I will not speak with him, he demanded with a tone of disturbance and racism. The other Muslim envoys stood firm, declaring, he is our leader. He is the wisest and most knowledgeable among us. We do not discriminate by color or ethnicity. Cyrus had no choice but to listen as Ubadah spoke boldly. There are 1,000 blacks, as black as myself, among our companions. I and they would be ready each to meet and fight 100 enemies together. We live only to fight for God and to follow His will. We care not for wealth, so long as we have wherewithal to stay our hunger and to clothe our bodies. This world is not to us. Recognizing the steely resolve in Ubadah's voice, Cyrus turned to his men and whispered, I fear God has sent these men to devastate the world. Then he said to Ubadah, I have listened, good sir, to your account of yourself and your comrades, and I understand why your arms so far have prevailed. I know too that the Romans have failed by caring overmuch for earthly things. But now they are preparing to send against you immense numbers of well-armed battalions. Resistance will be hopeless. But for the sake of peace, we will agree to pay some of money at the rate of 2 dinars a head for every man in the Arab army, 100 dinars for your commander, and 1,000 for your caliph, on condition that you return to your own country. Ubadah answered, Do not deceive yourselves. We are not afraid of your numbers. Our greatest desire is to meet the Romans in battle. If we conquer them, it is well, if not, then we receive the good things of the hereafter. Our prayer is for martyrdom in the cause of Islam, not for safe return to wife and children. Our small numbers cause us no fear, for it is written in the book, Many a time hath a small company overcome a great host, by the will of God. Understand, therefore, that we can accept no terms except for one of the 3 options which we are ordered by the Caliph to offer you. We should opt for the jizya, said Cyrus to his committee. Jizya was a tax to be paid by adult men who can fight only as a compensation for not joining the army that protects the lands. The fortress leaders declined the recommendations of Cyrus. They asked Ubadah for a month of truce, but Ubadah gave them 3 days. On the 4th day, the Roman opened the gates of the fortress and attacked the Muslim army. They were quickly defeated and forced back into the fortress. Cyrus was then able to convince the military leaders to send to Heraclius to ask him to approve a treaty with the Muslims, as it did not look that the Romans were going to win. Cyrus then took a boat and went to Alexandria. Heraclius was not happy about the request from Cyrus and saw it as weakness or even treachery. He called Cyrus to meet him in person. The situation was dire for the Romans in Egypt. Cyrus has managed over the years of persecution to lose any sympathy from the Egyptians, who are now either helping the Arabs or standing neutral in this war. Heraclius was in disbelief that around 100,000 Roman troops across Egypt were not able to defeat 12,000 Muslims. Heraclius sent Cyrus to exile. Meanwhile, the situation inside the fortress worsened. Supplies dwindled, morale plummeted. News arrived through Amr's spies that Theodore was mustering a force to strike from the north. Amr, the strategist, preemptively moved to intercept, clashing with Theodore's men in a bloody battle near Samanud city. Though the Muslims suffered casualties, they regrouped, setting up defensive positions and retreating to a village called Busair. Then, in March 641 AD, news came like a thunderclap: Heraclius, the Byzantine emperor, had died. The Muslim army cheered, sensing a shift in the tide of war. Inside the fortress, despair set in among the Romans. Seeing an opportunity, Azaber decided on a daring plan. Under the cover of night, he scaled the fortress walls with a small band of warriors. Once atop, they shouted Allahu Akbar, or God is greater, creating chaos and fear among the Romans, who believed the fortress was being overrun. Panicked and realizing defeat was imminent, George, the military commander, offered to surrender if the lives of his men were spared. Amr agreed, giving them 3 days to leave on boats. A treaty was signed. The Romans would either pay the jizya or leave Egypt. As the Roman soldiers departed, they dragged out Coptic prisoners who were jailed for holding on to their beliefs and, in a final act of cruelty, severed their hands. With the fall of Babylon fortress, much of Egypt was now under Muslim control. Only Alexandria remained as a Roman stronghold, but the tide had turned, and the march northward to Alexandria had begun, heralding the dawn of a new era in Egypt. Please like the video and subscribe to Egyptian Planet to continue watching this series. Next, the Muslim army will siege Alexandria, where Romans are not willing to leave the last stronghold in Egypt. Keep watching.